Hello, my name is Lauren Barrett. In today's video, we're going to be going over part 2 of Wine Instabilities, Precipitates, and Haze series. In part 1, we went over clarity and sensory and the different categories and identification of common hazes and deposits. Today, we're going to be going over prevention and remediation techniques for those various precipitates that we went over in part 1. Be sure to check out part 1 if you've not seen it yet, and come back here once you've checked out part 1 of this series. So prevention and remediation. Now, to prevent potassium tartrate precipitation, we have a few different strategies available to us. We have subtractive strategies that include static cold stabilization with KHT seeding, electrodialysis, and ion exchange. And we also have additive strategies with protective colloids. This includes Zenith, which is potassium polyaspartate. We have quite a bit of information on Zenith and many past webinars, so I highly recommend checking out those in the resources provided. But additive strategies can really be a useful tool for helping to mitigate the cost associated with cold treatment and water consumption as well. It's a much faster, easier way to stabilize your wine without oxidizing it through this static cold stabilization process, and can give you a little bit more level of control with ensuring that your wine is tartrate stable. Now, calcium tartrate is a bit more complicated due to the unpredictable induction time and crystal nucleation, which really can vary depending on wine chemistry and the presence of inhibiting factors previously mentioned in part 1 of this series. Now, we can perform some subtractive strategies for preventing crystallization, including seeding with micronized calcium tartrate and ion exchange. And we also can dilute and blend with lower lots, which have less calcium. Now, unfortunately, micronized calcium tartrate is not approved by the TTB as treating material, but we do have some inhibitors which we can utilize as well. And those inhibitors of calcium tartrate include wine polysaccharides, yeast manoproteins, gum arabic, and some organic acids, which can really help reduce the crystal formation of calcium tartrate. Now, calcium instabilities have been increasing throughout the industry and have especially been a problem with sparkling wine producers and gushing. And it's really important that producers start to analyze for calcium along with tartaric acid and pH. Our research and development team has basically made a model for calcium instability, which is a great tool for assessing if a wine is at risk for calcium tartrate precipitation. And we're happy to provide results to clients if you want to reach out directly to your technical sales rep. We also have a really comprehensive flyer on calcium stability, which is included in the resource section of this presentation, and I highly recommend taking a look at it just so you can dive further into this specific instability. With protein haze prevention, we have several strategies for mitigating its occurrence. Finding with bentonite is by far and away the most used strategy in the industry, and it's really important to consider that not all bentonites are the same. So sodium-derived bentonites are more efficient with protein removal than calcium bentonites, which themselves are better at generating compact lees and more applied for clarification. For this reason, many of our bentonites are activated with sodium to obtain the best of both forms. Now, PharmaBent is a calcium sodium active bentonite that has been micronized to increase its surface area and in turn its protein removal capacity. It by far and away is the bentonite in our portfolio with the highest protein removal and requires a significantly smaller dosage compared to standard bentonites alone. Now, enological blends are also really useful tools that have the benefit of side activities from other co-finding agents contained in the blend. So Clairol ZW is a blend that contains plant protein, ketosane, and sodium activated bentonite. It's used for clarification and colloid stabilization of wines destined to be treated with Zenith, and its dosage range is typically 30 to 40% less than bentonite alone. We can also use pre-fermentation addition of hydrolyzable tannins, which can also in turn help precipitate proteins in the juice phase. Now, speaking of juice, the addition of protease enzymes is extremely useful for increasing protein stability and the efficiency of fining agents. Enzymes are much more active in juice compared to wine, and if we recall, endogenous grape proteases are not significantly active in breaking up these PR proteins, which lead to protein haze. Now, manoproteins, there's a lot in literature that reference their properties as being protective colloids and helping to decrease protein size and agglomeration. And with this in mind, it's important to look at yeast selection and look for yeast that is a high producer of manoproteins. One in our portfolio is Enartis Firm Vintage White, produces quite a bit of polysaccharides. And we have a lot more useful tools on our website, and definitely make sure to check out our proactive protein stabilization webinar, which goes into much more detail about protein haze prevention and mitigating the use of bentonite. Now, when it comes to metallic hazes with copper and iron, the major sources that we're going to see increases in copper and iron levels is from vineyard fungicide sprays, old winery equipment, some filter pad media, and select fining agents such as copper sulfate and some bentonites as well. Remediation for copper and iron is really best used with PVI PVP. In the past, many people would use potassium ferrocyanide. It's called blue fining, and there is some bioabsorption that you can apply with yeast, but really the best tool for removing copper and iron is PVI PVP, and we have StableMet in our portfolio and Claryl HM, which contains some preactivated ketozan. On the right-hand side, we can see here StableMet's effectiveness in removing copper, and you could see that the control here had 1.6 ppm of copper, and just a 20 milligram per hectoliter treatment was able to bring that within to the legal limit of 1 ppm. And then we have StableMet at 40, bringing that down even further, and then 60 milligrams, bringing it down to 0.6. For microbiological hazes, the main sources of this haze and these organisms are really going to be from the bottling line with Zygosaccharomyces, air exposure, that's going to be where you're seeing a lot of your Acetobacter and Gluconobacter, unclean barrels, and any sort of cross-contamination as well. And the best prevention for reducing microbiological hazes is to make sure that you have a clean cellar and a good monitoring system as well. Proper SO2 management, sterile filtration at the bottling line, and you also have some other tools such as Enartis Stab Micro and Enartis Stab Micro M. Now these are ketozan or preactivated ketozan, which can act as a microbial fining agent. I've highlighted here Brettanomyces, Zygosaccharomyces bailey, and Schizosaccharomyces pombe. This is showing just various wine microorganisms, their original control population, and then the population followed by treatment with Enartis Stab Micro M at 20 grams per hectoliter. And you can see here that with them, at least the organisms that we're concerned about when it comes time for bottling and maturation is reduction in population by twofold for Brettanomyces, and with Zygosaccharomyces by threefold, and threefold again with Schizosaccharomyces pombe. So it's a very effective agent, antimicrobial fining agent, and can help mitigate the use of SO2. I also have here a picture of Self-Brett, which is a in-house plating agar tube where you can screen wines to see if you have Brettanomyces present. Highly recommend this. It takes about 7 to 10 days for the cultures to grow at room temperature, but it's a very good screening tool just to verify that you don't have any sort of Brettanomyces infection. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about the role of protective polysaccharides, specifically acacia gums and manoproteins. And polysaccharides have varying physical chemical properties that can react with various colloid particles in wine, and their reaction with these particles really limit their aggregation and flocculation. So they can basically participate in reactions with tannins and can help improve color stability. They'll prevent protein haze in white wines, delay and potentially arrest the formation of crystalline precipitates, can increase mouthfeel and viscosity, preserve wine aroma, and really improve sparkling wine foamability. And I have listed here the different stages at which you can apply polysaccharides in wine, and from fermentation to maturation to pre-bottling. Here I have some of the resources and methods. I wanted to make sure that you guys all are aware of the Australian Wine Research Institute. They have a really great haze and deposit gallery there, and different classification and identification instructions for further lab analysis to identify precipitates and hazes. I also have the OIV's international methods linked here as well. Wine Analysis and Production is another great book, and some further citations and readings that I highly recommend you check out. And with that, thank you all so much for your participation in this Haze and Precipitate series. And feel free to contact your local Enartis branch if you have any questions or any issues with hazes and precipitates in your wine.